What's up, Totem Pole Nation? Welcome back to Lambo and Matt's World of Sports. Free agency was not just those first 2 days of craziness. It has continued, and the craziness has followed. We're going to get you updated on all the moves that have been made since that whirlwind of 2 days has calmed down. We'll get you filled in. Also, big news. Aaron Donald has retired, one of the greatest defensive players of all time, certainly the best of his generation. We'll get into, his career and how good he was as well. So, as always, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Shout out to Sideline Sports Network, and make sure you give TotemPoleNation.com a visit. Get some gear to support the boys. Let's go.
Well, it was just unfortunate. Aaron Donald retiring is not shocking to me. At some point in time, he was going to retire. He wanted to retire 2, 3 years ago. I think it's when after they won the Super Bowl or the year before they won the Super Bowl and they beat the Bengals. He wanted to retire at some point in time. Him retiring is not a shocker. Here's why it's not much of a shocker. Number one, the Rams have been up and down, especially with the quarterback situation, obviously. But looking at Aaron Donald's Hall of Fame resume, obviously drafted in 2014, he went to he came from Pittsburgh, obviously Kenny Pickett school. We don't like Kenny Pickett, but just out of respect for Aaron Donald, right? Pittsburgh, that's where he came from. Defense Rookie of the Year in a Pro Bowl. Then 2015 and 2016, first team All Pro Bowl, first team All Pro with the 2 Pro Bowls as well. Now, between 2014 and 2016, it's the Jeff Fisher era, right? They were still good defensively, but offensively, they weren't great. 2017, 2018, Defensive Player of the Year, first team All Pro and a Pro Bowl. One of those years, they went to the Super Bowl. They had a great defense, but they could not beat by New England Patriots. It's the last time we won the Super Bowl, obviously. 2019, first team All Pro with the Pro Bowl. Like I said, if you go play Madden, I mean, in one of them years he was rated overall 99. So I mean, my God, Aaron Donald is something special. 2020, 2021 Defensive Player of the Year in 2020, first team All Pro, Pro Bowl, Super Bowl champion. That's what Aaron Donald wanted, a Super Bowl, right? In 2021, he wanted to retire at the same time as Sean McVay, but Sean McVay signed another contract. He came back. And this is after the year they went 5-12 after they won the Super Bowl with 4 quarterbacks, obviously. 2022 a Pro Bowl, 2023 still first team All Pro with the Pro Bowl. But when it comes to the Rams defense, the secondary was never that great, right? When you lose Jalen Ramsey, he went to the Miami Dolphins, right? You didn't have Bobby Wagner and all that other stuff, a veteran presence. He went somewhere else as well. So Aaron Donald couldn't carry the load by himself. And the older that Matthew Stafford gets, the injury prone that Matthew Stafford gets, it's like at the end of the day, it's like how much more? Aaron Donald, we know how much presence Aaron Donald brings to that field. It's hard to double team him. He can beat one-on-one blocks, right? The greatest defensive player of all time, of course, next to Lawrence Taylor, obviously, which was great as well. But it just come time where what type of Rams team are we going to get? Did he really want to go down with that much of a beating and they weren't consistently winning? Now, they barely made the playoffs last year, which I said they was going to make the playoffs. But there's so many good teams in the NFC now that caught up with the Rams now. There's just so many good teams. How much energy does Matthew Stafford had was coming to concern. Of course, what also comes to concern with NFL players, not just Aaron Donald, but you want to walk out healthy. You don't want to walk out beat up and, CTE and, stuff. You don't want to walk around like Antonio Brown. That man just lost his goddamn mind type stuff. But just at the same time, he wanted to walk away, healthy. He has a wife. He has beautiful children. So you want to take that into consideration. What else does he have to prove at this point? LA is his home. He doesn't want to go to another team. I think 10 years is good enough. Am I shocked about the retirement? No, he wanted to retire before that. So I'm not shocked. I appreciate what Aaron Donald has brought to this game. And before we start this whole free agency thing, what is your thoughts on the Aaron Donald situation of retirement and what's next for the Rams going forward?
Well, a shit ton of cap space just opened up. I mean, he's one of the most highest paid guys in the league, and for good reason. Like I let it off with, he's one of the GOATs of the defensive tackle spot. He's came in undersized and just proved everyone wrong. There's not much more to say besides, he's really one of the greatest players of his position of all time, and certainly of, his decade in the NFL, obviously proving that almost right away. So, cheers to him. Like you said, he was talking about retiring a couple years ago. So when I first saw it, I was like, oh, damn, that's crazy. But when you actually just think about it for a second, he had already cemented his legacy after that Super Bowl. He didn't need to prove anything else. And all he did was go out, get 2 more Pro Bowls and a first-team All-Pro after that. So one of the greatest. You could put him in the Hall of Fame right now if it was allowed. He deserves it. He'll be in the Hall of Fame as soon as his window opens up. First ballot, no question.
The trades I want to get into now. I know I jumped a little bit ahead, but the shocking one was Jim Harbaugh revamping that roster and says, "All right, we're not paying Mike Williams $20 million. Injury prone, he's gone. Keenan Allen to the Bears for a 4th-round pick." Now, I think it's a steal. Now, I don't know if the rumors are true. There's a possibility he's going to go to the Patriots, but I don't know if the Patriots got cheap post Bill Belichick said that a 4th-round pick was too high. Now, I understand we drafted some guys in the past in the 4th round, but I like to have Keenan Allen as well. Now with the Bears getting Keenan Allen, Justin Fields has help, right? He has help now. He has really no excuse. Now the question is whether they're going to draft a quarterback. We will figure that out in April 25th when they draft the quarterback. That's when we will figure out. But for the Chargers, they're trying to revamp everything. They got the number 5th pick overall, so that means you're going to have to draft Malik Neighbors, Xavier Worthy, Rome Odunze, maybe your Michigan wide receivers. So the wide receiver for this draft, there's a lot of good wide receivers in the draft. So I guess you develop those as well. You got Greg Roman. You're changing the offense, obviously. I'm not surprised that if they run that Colin Kaepernick offense, let Justin Herbert run. I think Justin Herbert will be a good threat while running and passing at the same time without injuring himself, obviously. But, he hasn't had that many injuries, but just finger stuff related. Everybody hurts their finger. But with Greg Roman, you know what I'm saying? Hey, get rid of the cap space, spend more money. Like I said, free agency, we still got about a good 20-some days. But getting rid of those guys, Joey Bosa did restructure his contract. Thank the Lord. I thought he was going to get rid of him too. But I think Jim Harbaugh knows what he's doing. I'm not really shocked about what he did. At some point, I think it was shocking that he went to the Bears. Shocked that he was going to get traded. No, not really shocked that he was going to get traded, but they'll use some new wide receivers, and the Bears have all of they need right now. So it's good for Justin Fields. The Chargers are showing you, hey, we're going to rebuild, we're going to do stuff the right way, and we're going to be able to compete for the AFC West because they know they have to beat the Raiders are going to be competitive, and they got to beat the Chiefs, right? So in order for them to make their mark in the first year, Jim Harbaugh, he's been in the NFL before. His first year into the NFL, when he was the head coach of the 49ers, he took him to the NFC Championship game. Then the second year, he took him to the Super Bowl. Then took him to another NFC Championship game. So I agree with what Harbaugh is doing. Get rid of that cap space. Get rid of the money. Keenan Allen's obviously getting older. So that is my free agent take on that. What else did you have, or did you want to add on the ones I just said?
I'll add on a little bit to Keenan. The wide receiver trade market has not and still does not make any sense to me whatsoever. Just the value of top players at their position, at almost every other position, you could have at least got like a second for him. Like, this is Keenan Allen. And now I get it, he's old, so that drops his value. But to think like just a 4th, and like, yeah, you can get some steals in the 4th for sure. Last time we talked about this, I named off a bunch of 4th round guys that Dallas has gotten. Like, that's huge. 4th round picks are not trash. But if you were to have a draft of the NFL talent right now and Keenan Allen was there, I think you value him a little bit higher. Like that's one of the best receivers in the game. And I think what it does, I don't think it bodes well for, you said Justin Fields. I think this is basically written in the most permanent ink you can think of that they're going Caleb Williams, as if anyone had a second thought of that. Look, you're not bringing in two receivers that are paid huge money, bringing in a running back that you just paid about the average. You've got a defense full of guys that you're paying top-notch money. You don't do that if you're planning on taking a quarterback's fifth-year option. They're doing this because they're getting a brand new rookie deal, and they have the space to do it. If they wanted to keep Justin long-term, they'd have to pay him. And regardless of whatever his value would be, it would still be a hell of a lot bigger than what Caleb is going to get in, this rookie contract. So I think this is nothing but a commitment that they're building around a rookie deal. Justin, his value apparently is nothing. So it'll be interesting to see where he goes, or if he's just going to, be on the roster with Caleb. That I have no idea, but I think this is a stamp on that number one overall pick. Mike Williams, I think he does have stuff left in the tank. It's just, the tank in my car is 16 gallons, and I know the tank in a truck is, probably like 20. That tank can go a little bit farther. It's the analogy I'm trying to make here. He still has stuff left in the tank, but it's how far is that tank going to go till you need to take a stop and refuel, and refueling in this case is taking 3 weeks off because of an injury. Whereas, the other tank that might not hold as much can go a lot longer. I don't know, man. I think he gets brought in for, he was getting paid close to 20 a year, right? Or his cap hit was at least.
Yep.
Yeah. So, he's probably getting 15, 12 for like a 1 year thing on the open market. I don't think anybody is seeing him as like a long-term fit anywhere. And I don't think you could blame anybody for seeing him in that light, because he hasn't, when he's on the field, it's great, but he just can't stay on the field. Good fit. Who needs, there's a few teams I feel like, to be honest, I wouldn't hate him going to the Jags. I know they just got Gabe Davis, but that's a different kind of big play guy. Like Mike is such a big body, whereas Christian Kirk is small. Gabe Davis is like average size, maybe on the smaller side. Like two small guys, one to go in the slot, and you have Mike at the X. I think the Jags would be a pretty good spot if we're talking like a contending team. Now, if we're talking a team that's building themselves up, I think him in Washington on the opposite side of Terry would be very good. You already got Eckler on a super cheap deal. Terry McLaurin is really the only guy on offense that you're paying real money to. Mike Williams on the Commanders, where I wouldn't like it as a Dallas fan, I think for the Commanders would make a lot of sense.
We'll see about that. That's going to be selection for New England Patriots. How soon? I believe in Gerard Mayo, but I don't know what they're doing. They'll get a quarterback. I don't care what quarterback it is. Do I want J.J. McCarthy? Sure, national championship. But if Drake May and James Downs is open, you got to choose one of those two guys if they're open, obviously. I don't know how far we'll get back to the glory days. Like I said, that's going to be – we released some guys. We got some guys back. Released some key defensive guys. We extended Hunter Henry. We extended Josh Uche. We extended a couple guys. But like I said, the Gerard Mayo culture will be way different than the Bill Belichick culture. He earned that respect in the locker room, but it's going to be way different. And with new offensive coordinator Alex Van Pelt, we got a new defensive coordinator. So Jerron Mayo hired his own staff. It's not a Josh McDaniels. It's not a Bill O'Brien. Bill O'Brien went to be the head coach of Boston College, obviously. So we're gonna have to see. I don't know what my expectations are until preseason, but as of right now, if you ask me what would the Patriots be, I say we'll barely make the playoffs. And I give you 9 wins. I give you 9-8, barely at the playoffs. With the release of Mac Jones, which is goddamn great. Thank the Lord. Got rid of Mac Jones. Sorry ass. Thank the Lord. So I forgot. I have to go burn his jersey now. It's somewhere in my drawers. I get to go burn the jersey. So I will burn the jersey as of later. As far as free agents, the Sam Howell trade to the Seahawks, I think that was shocking. I did not see.
I thought it was good.
I didn't see that coming. I guess Dan Quinn says, "Okay, we want to start fresh." I thought they'd give Sam Howell some more time, because you got how many offensive coordinators has he been through? Eric Bieniemy's only been there for 1 year. Now he's the offensive coordinator, assistant head coach for UCLA. But with Drew Lock going to the Giants, the Seahawks said, "Okay, we need a backup quarterback to back up Geno." Now I think it's a great idea. Seattle received a 4th-round pick, which is the number 102 overall pick, and the 6th-rounder, 179, in exchange for a 3rd-round pick at 78 and a 5th-round pick at 152. The 3rd-rounder the Seahawks are giving up is their own, and they have an extra pick in a trade with Denver last April for the Russell Wilson trade, obviously. But I think this is great, right? With the receivers they have, the Tyler Lockett is still there. DK Metcalf, a big receiver. I feel like with the talent that Seattle already has, they made the playoffs the year before last year, obviously, with the talent with the DK Metcalf. Sam Howell, when he was at UNC, he used to throwing, deep shots, throwing the big receivers. Imagine Sam Howell, DK Metcalf. I'm not saying he's going to take over for Geno, but Geno has had a couple of history of injuries as well. He was injured this year. Drew Lock started. Drew Lock played well, but I think Sam Howell has a lot to prove on the table. I think this is a great trade for the Seattle Seahawks. Obviously, getting a quarterback that's been in the veteran for a while, but his turnovers has to go down just a little bit, right? A little bit turnover happy. Go ahead.
Yeah,
a little bit turnover happy in Washington, but go ahead.
Right, but that was his first year starting in his 2nd year in the league. And his first year, he sat behind Taylor Heineke, which, great guy. You're not learning from the best of the best in that situation. And like you said, in his 2 years, he had 2 different coordinators. And obviously it didn't look great. He was the most sacked quarterback in the league, and that was ahead of Bryce Young in Carolina, which their offensive line was definitely worse than Washington's. Regardless, Sam Howell was thrown to the fire as a 5th-round pick. I don't think he was set up for success. But at the same time, when you saw a veteran come in like Jacoby in this past season, he did more with what was on the field. And I think that's what has yet to be seen from Sam is growth into that kind of play. The issue is we haven't given him time to grow. He had 1 season to prove himself, and it makes sense him being drafted as a 5th-round pick. They don't have a lot invested into him. It's not like they're paying him 1st-round money. 5th-round money is something that these guys can throw around, and that's what they're doing in attempt to, move up in the draft a little bit. Look, it's clear the Commanders are going to take Drake or Jaden. That's not a question. So it only made sense to move on from, your 2nd-year QB. Or do you want your rookie to come in and his guidance be some guy that was thrown to the fire last year? No, they brought in Marcus Mariota, who good backup to have at this point in his career. I think that was a good move. And then moving on to Seattle with where he's going to be now, Geno's got a year or 2 left, do you think, of being a starter?
Yeah, depending on how hurt he gets. If he gets hurt.
Right. And Yeah, but even then, like just age, he got to resurrect his NFL career. He got a contract, and I don't know if, I mean, obviously his play will determine it, but I don't know if he's, like really elite contender to get, another good extension. I think this move could definitely be to have Sam sit behind Geno, which is a great guy to sit behind. Let him develop. And then once Geno's out, you can probably run a season of Sam and see if what you invested like a 5th-round pick into is worth building around.
And he's
Now,
drafted for cheap too. They got 2 years left in that contract for Sam Howell for only $2 million. So in the
that's what I
rookie deal,
mean. That's exactly what I mean. Yeah, that's exactly what I mean. So I think it was a great trade for both sides, really. Will Bo Nix be drafted in the 1st round? Could Minnesota or Denver be taking him? So I wanted to bring up Minnesota, Bald. I'm glad you did. I wanted to bring up Minnesota. They made a pick swap trade with the Texans, which gives them another 1st-round pick. They have now 2 picks in the 1st round, the 11 and I think now the 22.
22. Yeah.
So I think that solidifies that they're taking a quarterback at 11. Because from the mocks that I've seen recently, obviously we're still quite a ways out from the actual draft day. But from what I've been seeing, people are expecting 4 QBs to be gone in like the top 10. So this could be, insurance kind of for the Vikings to, if they do take a quarterback at 11, which the general consensus right now is that JJ is that 4th guy, which I think if he is taken in the top 10, then Bo Nix gets the benefit of that, because if there's, those 4 guys off the board so quickly, a team could pull the trigger soon after. If I'm the guy, no, I'm not pulling the trigger on Bo Nix. I don't think that's who I want to build the future around when he's already like 25 years old. But I could be wrong. The same thing can kind of be said for Penix as well, and 2 ACLs. I don't know. Denver needs a QB. Minnesota needs a QB. Jarrett Stidham and Sam Darnold are not leading those teams in the future. My question is, do either of these teams make a run for Justin Fields? And which of these teams are going to just completely reach and look like an idiot on draft day? Because Denver has 12, correct? These are the 11th and 12th teams?
Yes.
I think one of these guys are going to get JJ. One of them is going to make a mistake reaching on someone else. Or someone could take a chance on Justin Fields. What do you think?
Ooh. We gonna have to see. I don't have an opinion on it. Here's why I don't have an opinion on it. Minnesota letting Kirk Cousins walk was probably the most shocking thing that I've seen. Just letting him walk. I understand he came off an Achilles injury. Of course, I do understand that. But how does it make Kevin O'Connell relevant as a coach? Now, I understand that Kevin O'Connell in his 1st season took the Vikings to the playoffs. They lost to the Giants. But then the 2nd year, with the backup quarterbacks they had, they weren't that great. He benched. Josh Dobbs was good for a couple games, and he benched him. So this is a quarterback-winning league, obviously, so you need a quarterback. I think Minnesota will probably be the stupider one. I think when it comes to Denver, even though Sean Payton didn't make the playoffs with Russell Wilson at 9-8, they were 9-8. So they were a couple games away from making the playoffs. A couple games they shouldn't have lost to. I bet if they beat the Patriots on Christmas Day, they would have made the playoffs. So the Denver Broncos aren't that far off, but the Minnesota Vikings, are probably going to be the stupider ones, just because the Minnesota Vikings are so unpredictable. This is why every time the Minnesota Vikings play the Dallas Cowboys, I don't go for the Minnesota Vikings, because what type of Vikings team are you going to get? And it's not just against the Cowboys, against any other teams. It's like they had the talent. They have Justin Jefferson. But Justin Jefferson is the best wide receiver in the NFL. his numbers are going to go down depending on the quarterback. His numbers are going to go down. I doubt that Justin Jefferson is going to get fed the ball like what Kirk Cousins did with him. His numbers is completely going to go down. I think Minnesota will be the dumb one, and I think Denver would be targeting the quarterback. And yes, I won't be surprised if they do look at Justin Fields, depending on what the Chicago Bears do on draft night. But as far as free agency, the Chiefs, the defending Super Bowl champion, signed Marquise Brown, Hollywood Brown. You see that text message from Andy Reid? He said, lights, camera, action. Now, I understand the Chiefs are back-to-back Super Bowl champions. They hadn't really made too much noise in free agency. I mean, they signed Chris Jones to a long-term deal, obviously, but the Chiefs said they got wide receivers. The Chiefs are showing you they didn't need Tyreek Hill to win that Super Bowl. They won back-to-back without Tyreek Hill. Like I said, I know we hate the Chiefs, and we're getting sick and tired of them winning, but you cannot deny the greatness of Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, bringing in Marquise Brown, that defense of the Chiefs of Chris Jones. I wouldn't be surprised if they win 3 years in a row. I don't want them to win 3 years in a row, but with the signing of getting receivers, Andy Reid knowing how to recruit, I would not be surprised if they get that. And by the way, they need to get a wide receiver because they're picking at number 32. So I bet you all the wide receivers on the top dogs like Xavier Worthy and a Trey Frank.
Dude,
I bet all these guys would be good.
This receiver class is deep. If there is a year where they can get one late, it's going to be this year. It's not going to be obviously one of those top 4 guys that everyone's talking about, but you can get to the 6th or 7th, 8th best receiver in this class, and he'd be a top 5 guy in most other classes. I think that this is the year that a wide receiver could be drafted late, but they took care of that. And they can address, another need at that 32 spot, unless someone falls right into their laps, which happens all the time. Like we had Micah fall to 12. We had CD fall to 17. Like that shit just, it happens. It's the draft. People reach. It's like we were just talking about with Minnesota and Denver. Minnesota, I had one more thing to say about the Justin Jefferson targets and stuff.
Yeah.
Are we sure now that Kirk is gone, which I wasn't surprised about Kirk leaving? Do you remember what the GM said his first press conference? The new GM? He said,
what do you say?
He said, well, we don't have, like a bad quarterback situation by any means.
What?
He said, but we have Kirk Cousins. We don't have Aaron Rodgers out there. We have Kirk Cousins. Like he was in his first press conference. Do you remember that? Let me pull up the quote. Does he know football?
From
the jump, he made it known very publicly that he wasn't the biggest Kirk fan.
Well, you're not going to see, you know what I have a problem with? These people owning teams and they don't know anything about the sport of football. They don't know anything. They're just business people. Now, I respect them for being business people, but you don't know what the hell you're talking about. Kirk Cousins was your best option. You don't have nobody else now. I understand he came off an Achilles injury. I do understand that. I'm not denying that at all. But Kirk Cousins was a better option than anybody else you have on that squad. Josh Dobbs was a turnover freak last year. He was good at some games, but that Bears game that lost in November.
You ready for it?
Yes, go ahead.
Here's the quote. I'll be frank. The one asset where you get nervous about not burning it down is quarterback. He's a good quarterback, but we don't have Tom Brady. We don't have Patrick Mahomes. The Super Bowl is more likely to win if you have that quarterback. It's very unlikely if you don't have that quarterback. So he pretty much said in his first press conference that we do not have a quarterback that can take us to the Super Bowl. So I think when this came out, that in his first press conference, he said that. So I think when this came out, it wasn't super surprising. I don't think that this isn't the GM that signed Kirk to that big deal, right? Like he wasn't a part of that process. I don't think he was really tied to Kirk staying in Minnesota until he retired. I think not that he was ready to go, because obviously they just went out and signed Sam Darnold, and now they're going to have the choice of like the fourth to sixth best QBs in the class. Like they didn't really set
Sam
themselves
Darnold's
up.
not the answer.
Oh, no shit. Yeah, I agree with you there. But like, he wanted to move on. The grass isn't always greener, and now they look to be in a pretty unfortunate spot, which we can get back to the free agency stuff. But I will say to all the dumbass Cowboys fans out there that make me look stupid for even being affiliated with you, getting rid of Dak would put us in a worse spot than what the Vikings are in right now. Okay?
Get rid of Dak. Who's getting rid of Dak?
Dude, like half of Cowboys Twitter hates him, and it just pisses me off so much, because it's like these are the same people that it took 10 years for them to get on the side of Tony, and then Tony was gone. And now it's going to take them 10 years to get on the side of Dak, and by the time they admit that Dak is good, it's going to be over. Okay? So I'm just again, embarrassed to be affiliated with most other Cowboys fans. I've said that before. That's nothing new. All right? But if we were to get rid of Dak, who do you think we're getting at 24 in the draft?
Nobody.
Mike McCarthy can be on the hot seat. That's fine. We need to get a coach that can do something farther than 1 or 2 playoff games per year.
Bill Belichick.
Talent that we have. The issue with Bill is like obviously the personalities of Jerry and Bill. Like, would those ever coexist? No. Not that I wouldn't want it. Coach
Trey
Paul,
Lance is not.
don't ever say
Trey
something
Lance is not
stupid like that in this chat again, Coach Paul. Don't bring up something
Trey
stupid
Lance
like
is
that.
definitely not the.
What are we talking
sir.
about?
Trey Lance? What?
Trey Lance.
The guy that lost his job after he broke his ankle, and the
We don't
49ers thought he was the answer? No, Brock
We don't
Purdy
need
was the
that.
answer.
We don't need that. But what I'm saying is like we would be in a spot of QB purgatory. We would be in a spot of just averageness and slightly below averageness with talent everywhere else. And it would take people a season of that to fully understand, like we need them. People always bring up those 5 games with Cooper Rush. Let's not act like Cooper Rush was out there playing the gauntlet of NFL teams. Like, it's hard to win an NFL game, yes, but he didn't have a hard 5-game stretch. Okay, he didn't. And he played well with the weapons around him. But you think he could do that for an extended season? You're crazy.
Hell fucking.
That's what I'm saying. So the same thing that can be said for the Vikings can be applied to this hypothetical that half of Dallas wants to happen with Dak going somewhere else.
Well, despite what you said about,
yeah, go.
I'm back what you said about the Cowboys. The Eagles signed linebacker Devin White to a 1-year deal. Now I know that kind of makes you mad just a little bit. I know y'all signed Eric Kendricks and all that stuff, but the Eagles, they stacking on it. Saquon Barkley, Devin White. They getting some guys. CJ Gardner-Johnson, I think, is back with the Eagles as well, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
But Devin White from Tampa Bay, 1-year deal, $7.5 million. Their defense was pretty bad last year. I've said their secondary was the worst secondary I've ever seen in my entire career, and it was pretty bad. So looks like Nick Sirianni is somewhat on the hot seat. We know what the Eagles are doing. The Eagles are loading for the Cowboys, obviously, with that defense, getting linebackers, getting Saquon Barkley. He will be starting alongside Nakobe Dean, who did miss 12 games last year, which Eagles had hella of a lot of injuries, and also they're going to have Zach Cunningham into that rotation. But speed was an issue last year for the Eagles defense. Now they have somewhat speed. They were 30th in points allowed. That was 25 points per game. Devin White has a 4.4 speed in the 40. He could somewhat use it, but he does have 23 career sacks and 40 tackles for loss. Obviously, Devin White wanted to stay with the Bucs, but the Bucs didn't want to pay him. They paid Mike Evans and they paid Baker Mayfield. So they said, who do you choose? They chose Baker Mayfield and Mike Evans, and Devin White is gone, obviously. He's the fifth round pick out of LSU in 2019, still very young. I think the Eagles are doing an excellent job. But what does that say about your Dallas Cowboys? Now, I understand there's 30 days in free agency, but you already mentioned your frustrations talking about how day one you didn't make any moves, day two you signed somebody, and as I understand there's 30 days, but it's like the Eagles stacking up. They keep stacking up and keep stacking it up. How confident are you really are about the Dallas Cowboys right now until the draft starts? Because I don't see
So,
the Cowboys making much moves. I just see the
right.
Eagles.
And I will say that us not making a move at linebacker until, day 3 when we got a 32-year-old Eric Kendricks, just because he had played 7 years in Zimmer's system. I get it, but that's not a big move by any means. It's hard to make – now, if you watch that episode, I definitely went on like a 15-minute tangent filled with anger towards my Cowboys. The confidence, though, this team is still a team very capable of winning 12 games, 13 games. Not making a big move at running back hurt. But until the draft is over, it's impossible to fairly judge what they've chosen to do. Here's why I say that. If we go back 10 years, I think we'd be hard pressed to find a team that has drafted better than the Dallas Cowboys. Now, obviously, that has led to the same repeat of regular season success and then a first or second round exit in the playoffs, and I understand that. But purely draft wise, there's maybe a couple teams that you could argue have drafted better than Dallas. So to make an assessment on the roster before everything, follows through the way it's supposed to, or the way that they at least see it happening, I think is premature. That is coming from me, who went on a 15, 20-minute tangent just last week about this, or earlier this week about this. But I will say I'm more on the worried side than the positive side, because this isn't a draft where we have a bunch of extra picks that we can nail on some people. But I also can't ignore what the past has said. Besides Schoonmaker at 2, which we haven't even seen what he can really do on the field yet. But besides Schoonmaker in that second round, last year's draft was a home run. The year before that, we took, Tyler Smith out of Tulsa or something in the first round at guard. And people are at tackle, and people were like, what the hell is going on here? And now he's one of the better tackles in football. That can be said for almost every position we have. Deron Bland, 5th round pick. Jake Ferguson, 4th round pick. We've got guys all from the draft. So I need to see them complete the process before I judge, after I let that initial frustration out earlier this week. Would you welcome back Zeke at the right price? Hell yeah, dude. You know who we have on contract in the running back room right now? Deuce Vaughn. We have Deuce Vaughn under contract right now. And as much as I love him, in the NFL, he's not going to be more than a third down gadget back. That's the reality. You can't put a season's workload on a guy that's 5'5". He's explosive as hell. I really hope that we find a good way to use him, because I think it's been proven that you can use a player like that. But that's not an every down back. That, like I said, he's a third down gadget guy. That's his role. So we don't have an actual every down back on the roster right now. So Zeke, I would love for him to come in to be like down and 3 or less to go back, a goal line back, which we desperately needed last year. If we look at our red zone stats, we had terrible percentages in the red zone when it comes to being able to punch it in around the goal line. You know why? Because we didn't have the bruiser of Zeke in the backfield. Now, last year, before we released him, obviously the prices just weren't lining up. He wanted way too much for what his production ultimately led to be. But I think it gets overshadowed a lot that Tony Pollard's success came off of Zeke taking the blows for him. Like Tony Pollard doesn't go out and have 1,000 yards and like 1,500 scrimmage yards, all those touchdowns, without Zeke running on first and second downs, collecting those hits, opening it up for Tony. So I'd welcome him back just because I know that the role he's going to play is similar to that, probably with a little bit less usage, but it's going to be similar. We just need a back to do it. And now back to your question with do I trust it? Am I worried? The running back class this year in the draft isn't super strong, but those top 2 or 3 guys, I think, have a chance if we have Zeke in there. Jonathan Brooks out of Texas. He's not Bijan by any means, but coming out of that same backfield, he was his backup already, took the reins, and I think he's the number 1 running back on the board for a reason. I just need to see the plan executed before I'm worried. Because if we get Jonathan Brooks and we sign Zeke, then like my running back worries aren't really there anymore. But we have to wait until, late April to do that.
Well, that part is true. The Buffalo Bills, they did sign former Washington Commanders wide receiver Curtis Samuel. Deals worth up to $30 million. He got $15 million guaranteed. Now I understand that they lost Gabe Davis, they lost a couple other wide receivers, but the wide receiver room for the Buffalo Bills right now, Khalil Shakir, they signed Mac Hollins, Stephon Diggs, and of course Curtis Samuel. That is their wide receiver core, obviously. Now, when we talk about Buffalo, we talked about Josh Allen, right? How long is Stephon Diggs going to stay there? Now, signing Curtis Samuel, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I understand he was part of some injuries that he dealt in 2021. Also, Brandon being the GM drafted him back in 2017, and Joe Brady was the offensive coordinator with the Carolina Panthers, obviously, so he does have some history with them as well. But when it comes to the Buffalo Bills, how many times have we spoke on the Buffalo Bills making noise and then they don't make any noise for any reason? Now, signing Curtis Samuel, it solves it a little bit, but it doesn't wipe stuff out the window, right? Because you don't have that number 2 receiver. You rely on Diggs too much. And then when you turnover prone, then what happens? Now I understand you have your tight end here and there, but what does the Bills offense going to look like this year? That's my concern for Buffalo. Now I hope Buffalo shrinks into the downfall because I'm a Patriots fan, but I got to be honest with you, when it comes to Buffalo, you got rid of all your defensive guys. Your 2 best defensive guys, Jordan Poyer, you got rid of him at safety. Tre'Davious White, you got rid of him at cornerback. You're going to have to really have a great draft. So this is make it or break it for the Buffalo Bills just because – and I don't think Sean McDermott's job is on the line because, like, Buffalo was nothing before he got there. Buffalo was complete trash. Like, he made the playoffs with Tyrod Taylor, right? Buffalo was completely, like, downhill trash. I think Sean McDermott was supposed maybe once or twice, like, since being the coach in 2017. So I don't think – some of it is on Sean McDermott just as a defensive coach, but let's be real. I think – if Buffalo doesn't have a great draft, I think the Super Bowl run or the run to the Super Bowl is over.
I'm
we talk about Buffalo every single time. But they had a chance against the Chiefs multiple times. I think one year they lost so badly to the Bengals. They have chances, but the reign is over. What are your thoughts on Buffalo?
Buffalo has liquidated their defense in a season where their division rivals, let's start with the Patriots, are getting a new quarterback, have re-signed Kendrick Bourne, and will be making moves to make it easier for that rookie quarterback to succeed. Moving on, the Dolphins still have Tyreek Hill, still have Jalen Waddle, have just signed on their defense Kendall Fuller. They're making moves. Now, they did lose Christian Wilkins. That's huge. That is huge. But the Dolphins are getting, I shouldn't say better, they're maintaining what their ceiling, I think, could be. And that's still explosiveness on the offense. You still have one of, if not the best running back duos in the league, if healthy, with Raheem Mostert and Devon Achane. And then who's left? The Jets are getting Aaron Rodgers back, still have Garrett Wilson, and I think would be stupid if they didn't make a move for another receiver. Like, all three teams outside of there are getting better on offense. And this is the season that you needed to completely liquidate your defense. I don't know. I'm with you. They need to ace this draft or they're just going to get bullied by their division rivals.
The last thing I wanted to talk about. Oh, last thing I wanted to talk about before we end this was the Titans. Remember Titans signing Calvin Ridley? We had to talk about that. But it's funny. Somebody said this on Twitter. I kind of do agree with that. The Titans didn't want to pay AJ Brown $100 million when he was 24, but you don't have a problem paying Calvin Ridley, a 30-year-old wide receiver, somewhat closer or the same money. What is wrong with the Tennessee Titans? Now, I'm not saying Calvin Ridley's a scrub, but that contract that Calvin Ridley got, you couldn't get that to AJ Brown?
Yeah.
I think the Titans, I think it's a great signing, but I think it's a dumb contract just because of age, right? Like Calvin Ridley's 30 years old, but Mike Vrabel was upset in the draft when you didn't sign AJ Brown, and that was probably the downfall of Mike Vrabel in Tennessee, just because you had Ryan Tannehill, but you go ahead.
Not the same GM. This is a new GM for the Titans.
No, I know it's a new GM. I'm just talking about just in general.
They didn't, that GM didn't refuse to pay AJ. This is also the GM that I'm assuming was one of the main guys of wanting to get Vrabel out of the building. I think they're just trying to do a whole reset over there, and I don't know if I'm liking the style that they're choosing to go about it. Let's just get rid of one of the best coaches of the past, decade. We'll also, overpay a receiver who hasn't shown us really anything in 3 years.
But you didn't want to pay AJ Brown 3 years ago. That's all I'm trying to say.
Well, that's the thing. It's not the same people making the decisions. So it's not that they didn't want to make that decision with AJ. I think, now they're in the spot of they're in a tricky quarterback spot because, do you think that Will Levis is going to be a long-term answer at quarterback?
No.
Me neither. Me neither. And it seems like they're kind of, they're trying to capitalize on kind of the same thing we were saying earlier with the Bears. They have a quarterback that's on a second-round deal who's cheap as hell. Why not spend that money on a new running back who's younger, but obviously not as good as Derrick Henry? But that's, another thing with trying to just reset everything within the organization. So they wanted a new running back. They got one. And they spent about what these new contracts have looked like in this offseason for running backs. And then they wanted a new wide receiver. They needed a wide receiver for sure. So, like, I don't blame them on that. But we see
he just came off suspension.
He came off a suspension, and then in the year he did come off of it, he had flashes, but let's not act like he was the Calvin Ridley that we knew from Atlanta. And even then, he had a great season in Atlanta, but it's like, again, we can't act like this is a Mike Evans type situation, whereas like as soon as he came into the league, you knew that this guy was going to be a dog, and he's continued that same level of dominance every single year. That's not Calvin Ridley, and they're paying Calvin Ridley as if he's, one of the top guys in the league, which I don't think he proved last year at all.
I understand they still have DeAndre Hopkins, even though last year he had 75 receptions for 1,057 yards, 7 touchdowns. But, you got the receiver. I understand Calvin Ridley's not the Calvin Ridley Atlanta. You still got DeAndre Hopkins, but the quarterback, DeAndre Hopkins is still at the end of his career. He needs to get a ring. He better lead the tight. He better.
If we look at his season,
deal.
Yeah, if we look at his season last year, it's not like he was consistently going out there and getting 80 to 100 yards, and that's how he got over 1,000. No, he went out there and he would either lay an egg, he'd have like 2 targets for 11 yards, or he was exploding and going for like 150 and 2 tuds. There wasn't an in-between. So having another, like a true wide receiver 1 at this point, I think D-Hop should still have the respect of a 1, but realistically, production-wise, he's more likely a 2 now, and I think that's good for the offense. Can Will Levis, it'll help him for sure having another weapon out there, but like, is he the answer?
They're going to have to look at a quarterback in the second round, probably. Even if it's not top 5, they need somebody. Because, with Brian Callahan being the head coach, I understand he coached Joe Burrow and all other quarterbacks in the past. It's the Titans have balls to fire Mike Vrabel, but if they want results, I promise you, Will Levis ain't going to be the answer. Malik Willis definitely ain't the damn answer either.
That's who the Cowboys should have gotten. That's who they need to get next year. I'm so glad that he didn't get hired somewhere else, because as soon as Mike is out, or Mike McCarthy is out, I want Mike Vrabel in there to replace him.
Mike Vrabel did just get hired as the personnel and assistant for the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, but he's going to be a head coach next year.
I hope so. That depends on what Jerry wants to do if he gets the ego out of his head by December. But we'll see how that goes. But it was long. It's all the NFL free agency updates. I know we didn't get to all of it because it's still signings to this day. We'll get back to it as soon as possible. We got the weekend. There's going to be some big trades. It's Lambo and Matt Sports. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. We want to thank you, Sounds for the platform. Y'all have a great day. Peace out. Take care.